So what we're going to look at is the the肘後備we have a nice copy of it here here in Kanseki repository. Very high quality transcription. Note the Taoist canon number DZ103. That'll be useful for us in a minute. So we can go into there and we can find different editions that they've transcribed. Here's the preface, and then we have 8 different chapters of text. Let's go to chapter 1. Alright, what you'll notice here, a few features of the text. Here's the title of the text, telling you, and also telling you this is the chapter 1. And then we have the recipe, the type of recipe. So this is basically the indication of what diseases the recipes that follow treat. Here's a description of the disease, and here's an individual recipe. Here's another recipe. Here's another recipe. What we also have here are the page numbers. This is the verso, and this is the recto of a page. And if you look, it will also show you what the original text looks like. If you click on the reference, in case you feel that the transcriptions are incorrect, you can go back here and check. Okay, what we've done is transpose this into a different format, which is slightly off screen now. Okay, here in DocuSky, and the text looks very similar. When you first load it up, you will find that it looks like this. Here you have the title of the text, right? Here you have the Daozang number. Here you have this 01 after the Daozang is telling you that it's chapter 1. And then it's telling you that this is paragraph 1 from that text. Paragraph is something we've defined within the team. There's some metadata here about it. And then you can also see some of the metadata about that if you want. There's not much to see, really. More interesting is to look at the tags that we have embedded into the text. And we have quite a few. You can see here some of these have gone off screen, but we have recipe names, drug actions. Down here you see some of the more material cultural elements, the harvesting. We have some etiology, some acupuncture points are mentioned, and stuff like that. But importantly, is this one at the bottom, section headings. These section headings refer to these titles here. Now, you'll notice that the disease is described only in the section heading, and it's not referred to either really in the paragraph about the disease, although it is there, and it's certainly not referred to in any of the recipes, because the authors assume that you've read the section headings and are able to figure out that these recipes are related. You'll also notice here the page numbering from Kangripo is also included. So without the section heading, once you do a digital search and extract individual paragraphs, you have no idea what these diseases treat. So we've added that information here in the comments section. You can see we have section headings, and here's the disease that it treats. This is very useful for organizing our materials. Having done this, having tagged up the text, we can now do a sort of more sophisticated analysis. Let me show you on this PowerPoint here. Here we have the same image, basically of the beginning of the text. And also, just to let you know, we have 76 different diseases, basically, that are treated, or headings. We have 1,800 recipes and 3,700 drugs that do that treatment. Okay. Having split them up into the different tags that are related to their disease types, we can then begin to visualize them. So here, these are diseases that treat sudden strike of viciousness and that make you draw near death. Right? These are lethal conditions. And so here you have a variety of recipes which are in pale gray. The darker gray are the ingredients, and you can see which recipes share ingredients. In this one down here, you can see that all 3 recipes, the pale gray ones, use water. And looking at a section which has more recipes, this one for sudden heart pain actually has about 59 recipes, and you can see there's many more shared ingredients across the different recipes. This one in particular in the top appears now to dominate the whole section because it contains the most ingredients that are shared with other, it contains the most ingredients out of any of the recipes. You can see that by the size. But also, because it contains so many heart-related drugs, of course, it's then related to many other recipes. But you also have recipes down here in the bottom middle, which are independent, they're unique. They share no other ingredients with other recipes. So in this way, we can begin to sort of parse out the degrees of similarity, the degrees of sharing, the degrees of perhaps influence of different recipes. We can really begin to dive deep into different syndromes and diseases. This is using a platform called Palladio, which I'll use produce another video later to show you how to get into it and to use our data to visualize in Palladio. Having done that, having uploaded our material, you can also use this what I call a facet feature, what they call a facet feature, to explore the data. This shows you one disease type. Now, we're not looking at, in this slide, we're looking at individual recipes. In this slide, we're looking at, individual recipes for one disease type, right? This is heart pain. In this recipe, we're looking at heart pain and all the individual ingredients, but we're not differentiating about whether they occur in common in recipes. We're actually going to look at how drugs are used across heart pain, from heart pain, are used in common with other recipes. So you can begin to see this one, which is the collection I showed you earlier about the sudden death, or diseases that suddenly draw you to near death, how much they share. And then we can draw out another set of recipes. This one is for it's parasites. Actually, it's kind of these corpse worms that infect the body. And you begin to see what are some of the common ingredients. Now, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the solvents like alcohol and water are also included. So if you want to remove those, you can using the filtering system. And you can do this to explore in more depth and with a little more precision, some of these commonalities. Now, having extracted the water here, we can then begin to add in a few other. We can see some of the ingredients popping up. We have aconite there. We have dried ginger. Recipes which appeared earlier to be actually shared across quite a few recipes just within the heart pain section. Okay, so now we can add a fourth section, a fourth text section, a fifth, and a sixth, and we can begin to explore in a little more detail by zooming in using Palladio and looking at what ingredients are shared in common. And this is a way to explore recipe texts in a way that's really never been made possible before. And our sample here is the Bentsao, is the葛仙翁recipes. It's very useful text because it's so well structured. Okay, so that's what we can do there. Now, another kind of analysis that we can do, which is very novel, I think, using digital humanities methods, is comparing the recipe literature to the Bentsao, or the pharmacopoeic literature. In this example, here we have a listing of all of the drugs that appear across the entire text. And you can see water and wine, or alcohol, are the highest ones. Then you have licorice and ginger and aconite and bitter wine and cinnamon and soybeans and fresh ginger. And then down here you have Bado, or Croton tigrium, which is not so well talked about. So why don't we use this as a way to explore the comparisons across different text genres. So in the本草經集注, or the Pharmacopoeia, which was circulating in the same time as the Gohong's text was composed. In fact, Gohong had a copy of this text, an earlier version of it, and so we can be confident that he knew that kind of information when he was writing his recipe text. But you see it's organized in very different ways. The Bado here, Croton tigrium, is described in detail about its properties. It's acrid, and it's warming, and it's highly toxic, 有大毒. And then it has the primary symptoms with its treats, like cold damage, warm malaria-like diseases, hot and cold switching syndromes, etc. and it's also good for menstrual issues, etc., etc. So, and then later on, the detail is about variant names for the herbs, processing techniques, where it comes from, etc. So it's very drug focused, whereas our earlier text by Gohong was very symptoms focused, right? Now we can begin to compare whether these match up. In fact, for Gohong's recipe text, there are many more syndromes and symptoms, right, that are being treated than are indicated in the recipe tradition, in the本草经集注. You can see that there's less in the本草, which is occurring on the right, whereas Gohong's text is occurring on the left. The other thing you'll note is that there's no linkage up between the two, right? It seems like these two are completely discrete, and they're not using Bado, Tiglium, to treat the same thing. That's not strictly true, because if we zoom in, we'll find some important similar ingredients, similar diseases. I wonder if we can see this. Well, here we have the sudden death syndrome that we've been talking about earlier, and over here we have things like here we have nearing death, right? So again, these are basically treating the same disease, but they haven't been, because they're written differently, the computer can't recognize them. So what we need to do then is use some manual, some close reading techniques, right, to then explore these in more detail. And here you can see Shanghan, or cold damage, is basically described here as cold damage and seasonal transmittable diseases. Again, here we have transmitted malaria is also appearing here as malarial, sort of 胀气, malaise, and here we have the sort of warm temperature disease. Similarly, we have hot and cold syndrome, and here we have exactly hot and cold syndrome. Now, the disease descriptions may not match up exactly, and they certainly don't match up in their totality, because in fact, you'll see if you scroll down, the Pharmacopoeia tradition really does list far fewer diseases than are there in the recipe culture. So it's in this way that we can begin to explore these early recipe texts in, I think, much more sophisticated and detailed ways.